red button. I don't know if any of you saw that Twitter thing going around, but getting an angry white cat to purr, taking that unhealthy relationship and making it something more positive. So who here has seen that look on a client's face? Yeah. How many of you have also had that look on your own face a few thousand times? We've all been there. Not everything is easy. There's a lot of balls in the air, plates spinning, whatever analogy you want to use. There's a lot of things going on with any project. Too many variables, and getting to this point can happen. And very likely it's going to happen more than once. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to get through that, how to get past that. And given the amount of espresso in here, that should take most of the session, but maybe not quite as long as it should otherwise. So, go on. Hypothetically, this should be working. Oh, let's see. All right, well, let's see if they'll let me do it this way. There we go. So first of all, who am I? My name is Donna. I am a support project manager over at Canopy. I've been doing this type of thing for a very long time. And I started off working here in in a small area of New Hampshire. Over the years have gone from designer to themer to strategist to PM because I decided that I wanted to do more writing and more talking to people and less everything else. Oh, that's working. And where do I work? I'm working in Canopy. We want to make sites that have impact. That means we work with a lot of nonprofits. We work with a lot of schools. We're not only trying to make sites that function with impact, but we make an impact on our society. So where we are now. This is a very boring description of what a project is, but essentially it's telling you that you have a lot of people, a lot of expectations, a lot of timelines, and a lot of details all coming together. And it's kind of something a lot of us kind of take for granted. If we stop and back up and look at what a project is, there's a lot of pieces that have to fit together in order for it to work well. And hey, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it all goes to plan. Go you, go team, go get that beer, leave the room now. It's great. Because that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about when it kind of goes to hell. Things get difficult, trust breaks down, people start questioning the value, things start snowballing and going in a negative direction. We don't want that. None of us do. It doesn't make for a healthy relationship. It doesn't make for a healthy product. It doesn't make for a healthy repeat business. It certainly doesn't make for conversions for them. Nobody works well in this situation. Because there's not going to be that perfect project. There's not going to be that unicorn. There's not going to be that easy thing. This stuff takes work. And we're going to talk about how to work through them together. So first of all, you've got to herd the cats. You've got to understand the players and the pieces. Because really, projects are about people. So we're going to establish who those people are, what their roles are, what their responsibilities are. We're going to talk about how to define them, what success looks like, and how to be flexible as you determine those longer-term goals. So things we have to just quickly identify and make sure that everyone else understands who these people are. Obviously, you're going to have your client stakeholders. Now, your client stakeholder has to be someone you talk to, but you have to also understand they have stakeholders to report to. And that's something that sometimes gets lost in the translation, because we can get focused on, wow, this client stakeholder is being a wall, but we don't understand the larger picture of the influences they have. So maybe they're not a wall, maybe they're caught between a rock or three. There's a lot more to it than just that one. So you have to, from an agency or a vendor point of view, keep in mind that larger piece. Meanwhile, from the client point of view, you need to realize the difference between your project manager and your account manager. Your project manager has to stay focused on your project. Yes, we are going to nurture your relationships. We are your day-to-day contact. We are the ones who are going to help you build trust through the results we're giving or helping to produce. Whereas your account manager is there to feel how you're feeling, to see things from your point of view, and to be more of your advocate. But really, it comes down to communication. This is going to come up a lot. All of the project management, all of the turning a successful relationship around, it has very little to do with the work you're doing and everything to do with how you present it, talk about it, and build trust with each other. Because trust is the glue of life. This is where I usually take a moment and I step away from this. I've done this a couple of times now. And I talk about things that break down trust and communication. The biggest one would be sugarcoating. People, especially people who are very well-meaning, want to sugarcoat things. They want to give the client a positive feeling when they leave. They want to use the compliment sandwich. They want to do all that. So they just take the compliment sandwich and say that your good news you're giving somebody is cotton candy. Bad news, this is going to cost twice as much. This is going over budget. This just isn't going to work, is a sea urchin. You hand somebody cotton candy, they're just going to grab it and be happy. You hand somebody a sea urchin, they're going to respect that. They're going to be very careful with that. And they're going to try to figure out what the hell to do with it. You give somebody cotton candy and they find a sea urchin inside of it, that's going to be unpleasant for everybody. If you keep giving them compliment sandwiches, that sea urchin wrapped in cotton candy, what's going to happen the next time you just give them cotton candy? It's the same thing. They're going to just shy away from it because they're going to be expecting something negative. Trust is everything. Be clear, be transparent, be whatever word that's just like that. But just keep talking. Be blunt. It's okay to be blunt as long as you're being honest and kind as you do so. So, as you're being transparent, first of all, you have to know who to talk to and how they want to be spoken to. Some people, one of our clients right now, he's like, yes, go ahead, send me everything through your system because you're supposed to use your system, but also Slack me if it's something you actually want me to look at. Okay. Drop them, hey, this is what it is, copy and paste. Not a big deal. I've worked with clients in the past who really, really wanted everything just emailed in a bulleted list. They had about 10 seconds between, coffee and the gym in the morning. They were going to read it. If I couldn't get it in that 10-second bulleted list, they didn't want anything to do with it. Okay. Find out what works for them. Now, if you have a system in-house where you have to use it, again, copy, paste, do what it takes to make sure you have the paper trail. But make sure that communication happens in a way that your client can digest it. And maybe that client has more than one stakeholder, or maybe they don't know the information. Who is the best person for the question? For example, there are times when we have, most of my calls, I have a tech lead on there with me. Why? I'm not the person to talk to for a very technical question. How does this view set up with these configurations? That's a really great question. Go team. Can I look it up and figure it out? Yeah, it's going to take me a while. Or do I have somebody right here who already knows the answer? That goes on both sides. Maybe you need to ask somebody else on their side to get on the call with us. Hey, bring in your IT person. We'll hash this out. Maybe it is a security issue or maybe a hosting issue and we need to switch something. And I think we're all getting a little more used to this as an industry, but just really be considerate of time zones. We all forget sometimes. I almost scheduled a meeting for 7 a.m. tomorrow morning for somebody yesterday because time zones are hard. But, there's a million tools out there. Just try to be aware and considerate as you go. So the next thing is we're never going to know what success looks like unless we define it. We have to know what the goal is. And that means the client has to be bought in on, has to have buy-in too. You're never, ever going to get there without knowing where there is. According to the PMI polls, 37% of projects fail because they don't understand what they're trying to do. Now, a discovery process can document all of what these goals are. So that way, even if stakeholders change on the client side, when they go back to it, well, this project's a failure. We didn't do this, or this. Well, we have this discovery documentation that said that none of those were your goals. We can work with you moving forward. We'll achieve those goals in the next iteration. But right now, define those goals early, document them, and then throughout your process, check in. Hey, are these still the things? With our support clients, actually just one I had an hour ago, I ran off to a corner somewhere, popped on a call. Hey, it's been a couple weeks since we spoke. Are these still the goals that we had? Are these still the priorities that you have right now? And you know what? We canceled 2 of them and made a new one in a list of 8. Continually check in. So MVP, what about right now? We're going to need to take a large list of everything your person wants in a project and drill down what is the actual need. Not of what features they need, but what goals they need. And then break down what features are needed to retain those goals. Because sometimes your full project is going to run over time, over money, over scope, what have you. It's going to happen. It's just a reality. We've all seen it. It happens. With the clear indication of those goals, you can drill down what do we need right now? What are the pieces that we need to make that work? Consider those the priority items, and then anything else, great. But as you're doing this, talk about it. And talk about it with the client, because they're going to need to be involved with those longer term goals, and they're going to need to buy into that MVP and that thought of what do we need right now. And the process has to happen, you have to be flexible throughout it. Things are going to change. Things are not going to go to plan. A technology isn't going to exist the way somebody thought it was when they were scoping out a proposal. Continue along, but continue to be flexible throughout. And to do that, continually be analyzing what you're doing, how it's working, how the client's responding. Change to the needs. And just continually try to improve. Frankly, we're trying to improve websites continuously, right? You have long-term clients. You're analyzing where their site is. You're adapting the site or making adjustments, and you're finding ways to improve that. It's the same thing with the relationship. It's just another web project. So, now that I've talked way too long about what the hell a project is, let's get to the hissing part, because, hey, that's why we're here, right? A hiss can be a good thing. People tend to not want to hear the negative a lot of the times. We're all in this let's be positive and yay society. A hiss can be a good thing. It can be exactly what you needed to know. Maybe you should have known it earlier. Maybe you should have known it before it was a hiss. Maybe there were things going on that you didn't know about building up to this moment. But a hiss can be a good thing. Sometimes conflict is the best way of starting out to get your right idea. I read a book once called Start With No. And the whole concept, not start with why. We all read that one too. But start with no. And the concept was you propose something, and the minute you get no, you understand where the range is. And that's when you can start figuring out what you need to do. By starting with that no, by starting with that hiss, by having that negative moment, you can build. You scale backwards until you find out what's going to work for both you and the stakeholders. So, here you are, you have a very upset person. This is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. Ah! It sounds exactly like that, I swear. Sounds like I'm falling down a hole, but whatever. So first trick is to hear them out. Let them talk. That is probably the hardest part. Why? Because none of us want to hear that. Somebody comes on the phone yelling at me, the first thing I do is paste on a smile and start, like picking my nails or something under the desk, like, oh, but hear them out. And as much as I'm faking the smile, I am genuinely listening because they have important information they're sharing. It might not be what they're saying, we need this and this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do this, and you did that, often means I'm getting pressure from somebody to do something I don't understand how to do, and it's affecting my job security, or my confidence, or my this, or my that. The you attack usually means they. Or maybe it does mean you, but often that kind of reaction has something else going on. So hear them out. Find out where they're getting their information. This isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Have you tried this? Well, let's pop on the screen share real quick. Okay, that's not what we're experiencing right now. Then, to whom did you hear this from? Well, Joe on the computer, he's on, okay, what kind of machine is he on? Well, he's on IE11. Okay, we might have a problem. And then, okay, what is this going to, how can this work for you? Is upgrading his browser an option? Things of that nature. But you're never going to drill down to the level past the yous if you don't hear them out first and then get them to the point where you're having a conversation. So what can I tell you? A lot of the times, they don't understand. In a lot of organizations, the person who's in charge of maybe content management is not somebody who is a developer point of view, so something like paragraphs can be very overwhelming. You have to really, I'm personally a fan of writing those little, not tooltips, but the notes for the fields and the admin. If you think you're going to have a non-technical person really using that a lot, little instruction goes a whole lot less phone calls. But anyway, a lot of the times they just don't understand the process or even the goals. Well, why am I doing this? I thought you wanted that. Oh, okay. Cool. Talk it through with them that way. Maybe the scope changed and they haven't communicated it. Maybe something happened there that they haven't been able to express because things are going fast there too. We're not the only ones where things are going fast. Something's going there too. Maybe the scope has changed. Maybe we need to sit around and stop, reset, and reprioritize based on that. One time I had this one project. Things were going crazy, out of hand. And it was this work contract. It was ongoing. We had been working together for 6 months, and we were going to continue to work together for many more to come. I said, all right, that's it. And I got us a retrospective board going in the middle of a project. Everything stopped for a week. We did a full retrospective, 4 people from her team, 4 people from ours. I allowed anonymous posts on the retrospective board so that all members could speak honestly about what was or was not working. I recommend that as well, especially if the stakeholder side maybe doesn't have a supportive environment. Their company culture may not be the same as yours. That anonymous trick, it helped a lot and it let us clear the air about a lot of things. And I made sure I was the one who read all of the pieces out loud so that nobody would feel singled out. And then sometimes it's that they can't show the value of what we're doing. Okay, I'm not doing this, we're not getting the conversions, we're not doing this, that, or this. Okay, let's go into your analytics. What does the behavioral flow show? What does the conversion rate show? What is this? What does the stuff from your CRM show you? Okay, how can we position this to show value of what we've done so that you can answer and justify the budget to your stakeholders? I just recently had a client who was like, I need to show, how is this, monthly budget getting used? I've made a quick pie chart of how the PM versus development hours is development focused and this and that and whatever. And she's like, that's great, thank you. But really, once you have that hiss, there's 2 ways you can go about it. As PMs or people who are leaders in our teams, a lot of the time their first reaction is we want to defend our team. These are the people we work with every day. We've seen this guy working at 2 a.m. because this last-minute deadline came up and nobody was told ahead of time, and oh my gosh, we're bending over backwards, and this person's still yelling. We can't do it. We have to listen it out. We have to not only listen, but then we have to ask them to help us fix it. You have to make them involved in the solution. You have to make sure they understand that they are part of the project team. So, sometimes it's the best thing to hear, because one other reason this is the best thing to hear a hiss. If they're not going to tell you these things, who else are they going to tell? The next vendor?
Your boss.
There's a lot of people who are just going to be out there and listening for somebody crying like that, and they'll be like, well, we can help you, and we won't do that. So keep that open and make sure they feel comfortable enough with you to have that moment. Because we want to all be playing well together. And that's where I come back to that concept of the project team versus the team. We all have our own teams, right? I care very much about mine. They're people I talk to every day. They're people I see working. I see pictures of their kids or their dogs or their cats. But our project team is more than that. When you're talking about your team in regards to a project, you have to include the stakeholders in that. You have to think of them as part of the project team. You have to extend to them. And that doesn't just mean in terms of the work. I got emailed a picture of somebody's new puppy yesterday. Oh my God, it's adorable. Little huge paws. It's going to be a ginormous creature, but oh my God, is it cute. I have another, I have a whole client of mine who I just recently met for lunch, or wonderful woman. It got to the point where we spent so much time on the phone together that one day I was traveling, I was in a hotel, I was taking a meeting, I was sick as anything, I was high fever, but I'm still taking this call from a hotel room, and she went, oh my God, you look terrible. And she picked up this corgi and shoved him, she's like, you must miss your dogs, and just shoved him into our webcam. And he's looking very confused. And I mean, it was a corgi named Mo. He looked like a little sub sandwich as it was, and he was a confused sub sandwich of a dog. And you know what? It was great. We got to the point where we started talking to each other as people. We needed to be people. The other day we were all joking around on a conference call, 2 client stakeholders, myself and a dev, and the first 5 minutes of the call we're all talking about, laughing about being parents. One woman was like, she's going off to college and she has a road trip and I was nervous. And the other one's like, well, my child just dropped something on the floor over there. Talk to them like people. Be a real team with them. They have to be involved with you on some connection level so that they do feel comfortable talking to you. And that can help prevent the hiss. Because it's much easier. The one with the corgi there would have no problem saying, can we hop on a quick call? Hop on a call. This isn't working, and we need this all this day. What do we need to do to make this happen? Because I know this wasn't in the original plan, but we need it. She came to me like that. It was the whole conversation, not, oh my God, we need this tomorrow, why can't you do this? Because frankly, 4 months before that, guess what phone call I would have gotten? So you have to consider them a part of it. So, the quick do's and don'ts. Don't ever get defensive. It's my first gut instinct, is my hackles go up and I want to be like, not my people. Don't forget to showcase the value. What you're doing has value, even if it's a small increment. Everything you're doing towards that site is creating better value. Even if it's a small improvement in performance and speed, maybe you went from a 78 to an 83. Hey, that's a great jump. That's people on their phones who are able to see more. Maybe you made a change the color contrast. Well, great. That's better with ADA accessibility. It's a small change, but you're adding value to the site. When they start coming back or start hissing at you with all the things that aren't right, you need to be ready and prepared to show all the things that are. And always keep talking about what you will be doing together. Whenever somebody's upset, the last thing they want to think is that you're going to leave. Think about it in any circumstance, whether it be personal, professional, whatever. If you're really upset, that's actually a moment of vulnerability. As much as the claws might be out, you're actually at your most vulnerable. If you're really upset, the last thing you want to know is that you're going to be left high and dry in that situation. Keep talking about how we are going to keep working together. We can fix this. We can do things. Keep using terminology about us and we, and how the project team is going to resolve any issues. Make sure they realize that the future is going to be together. It's our job in these situations not to defend what we've done, but to show the value and use that value to bring the team together, to make the client stakeholders feel that they've accomplished something. They've been a part of this process. It's not your dev team's success, it's the project team's success. So throughout, continue to be transparent, always ask the questions, and again, get to know the people. It's so much easier. So, yeah. When stakeholders are aligned, it's important to just keep them aligned, keep them focused. And even if their stakeholders are aligned in a way that's not helpful, that's okay. Turn them along with you. However, sometimes we're going to have a problem. This was another thing I've seen before where the stakeholders aren't going to be aligned. You have Joe in IT and Sam in marketing, and Samantha's really upset about this, and Joe really needs it this way, and they're each contacting you independently and wondering why it's not done. That's not going to help anybody. So first thing you've got to do is get everybody in the same room, virtually speaking, or physically, depending on your situation. I work for a diverse remote company, so I always think in terms of meeting. But nonetheless, get them all together on the phone. Sometimes it helps to throw one of those retrospective boards up for a situation like this, depending on what kind of misalignment you have. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting everybody on the call itself. And just throw out, okay, these are the issues. This is your request, this is your request. These are the resources we have. We need to talk this through. The goal at the end of this conversation is to clearly identify what the combined goal is and the priorities thereafter. Discuss what needs to happen to make those goals into in that priority level. Sorry, in that priority organization. Woo. I got ahead of myself. So yes, as the team though, when everything is on the table and all the people are in the room with you, that's when you set that priority list. That's when you get buy-in, that's when you get sign-off. So everyone knows the clear path forward. Okay, so let's backtrack a little. They're just starting to hiss. And they're not only at a hiss, they're full-fledged on the ceiling and, well, they're not productive. Yeah, it can happen. Part of that is remembering this is when they're also at their most vulnerable. Claws are out, they're at their most vulnerable. Why? Well, maybe they don't feel the process was communicated well enough, and they're confused, which can lead to fear or job security or maybe just intimidation. You have to try to be clear to build that trust. This one's a hard one. If their company culture breeds mistrust, that's going to negatively impact their ability to trust you. Probably, a while ago, had somebody say something along the lines of, let's get your boss on the phone. That would be fine. I completely, if you think I'm transparent with the client, you should see me with my coworkers. They kind of wish I wasn't, so. Sure, bring it on. But the fact that they threatened me with that tells me what they would do. In that situation, this is one of those times that having that corgi level relationship, that's actually going to be a new phrase for me. I just made that one up. But when you have a corgi quality relationship, that helps. Because even if they're worried about internal chaos, not saying that they're gonna be less likely to take an ally and blame something on you that maybe is just poor understanding. Frankly, be their ally. They're going to need one. And then we have clients who, when build projects, are more focused on the launch date, a specific date versus a KPI. Now, don't get me wrong, this one's kind of a tricky one. When you have larger organizations especially, sometimes there's a lot more that goes into a launch date than a specific, hi, I'm launching a website. It's more than putting out a press release. Sometimes there's actually large marketing schemes. There's somebody's like, well, we're coordinating the print of the date and we're having a party and we have this many people invited for a website. That's great. Nonetheless, for the most part, most websites, a launch date is important, but it's not the KPI. Your key performance indicators are website traffic, performance. It is how many conversions, how many new leads in Salesforce. These are your goals. Do not let the launch date distract you from what the goals are. So, with clients who are talking about that launch date, well, why? Why is that date? Why are we fixated on that date? Yes, we're going to try to make it. We have budget, we have timeline. We want to launch on time too. But why are you fixated on that particular date? Well, because this, and this. Okay. And this might be where you want to stop and reassess what that MVP is. So, this is the one none of us want to think about. I'm over here saying, not my guys, not my team. What if your team was wrong? What if they misunderstood it? They built the wrong. A mistake happened. Oops. Back to transparency. You've got to own it. Sometimes this means comping hours. Nobody wants that, but it does. Sometimes it means just fessing up to it and working through it together. Sometimes it's fessing up and then having to ask for clarity of what did you really mean? Whatever it comes down to, own it. You have to agree what the problem is, though. Is the problem really that we didn't do X, Y, and Z? Or is the problem that we thought you needed the results for X, Y, and Z and you really needed A, B, and C? We have to decide what part of that is going to cause the greatest stress for them and relieve that stress first. And then propose a timeline when fixing it. I know I skipped over what is needed to address it. Sorry. Figure out what needed, what resources you need, and then propose a timeline. Now here's the important thing about timelines. Maybe it didn't go well the first time. Okay, great. You want to build trust, don't mess up the second time with that timeline. Build in a buffer. Build in time for you to make another mistake. It's okay to do it. Build it in now. So that way you don't have to go back a third time. Well, guess what? That didn't go to plan either. Nobody wants that. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some breathing room. Give your team the breathing room. You don't want anybody working till 2 a.m. trying to fix something and being stressed out. Give them the buffer and the time to do it right. So, and then there's my personal favorite, when you deliver exactly what's requested and they're still not happy. Well, that's a different conversation. First, you have to find the common ground. What is the issue? And again, why is this an issue? What were you trying to achieve? Again, you want to figure out what resources is, but then The key one, not only do you prioritize this issue, but you figure out what else is getting deprioritized to have the resources. In this industry, in this Drupal community, there's an incredibly large percentage of people pleasers. Or people who are like, you know what, it's 9 o'clock at night, I have a half an hour, let me just do that. Or, I know somebody isn't gonna have time for that, let me just take that on, it'll only be 15 minutes. And then 3 hours later, it's midnight, and oh shit, I'm gonna skip the gym tomorrow because I'm too tired to get up. I see nodding heads, we've all done it. I'm guilty of it back when I was theming. Yeah, sure, when I was theming it. Never happened recently. Anyway, my point is, deprioritize. Go have a damn life. If you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. You want to go to the movie, go to the movie. This was not your fault. This is not something that you have to own. This is not something that you're like, wow, I really feel bad that I'm in a, you know, that whole shame and guilt of that. We can table that for another talk. But in this case especially, deprioritize something else. This was a communication breakdown. Don't let that kind of misunderstanding start impacting your culture. So grooming, just say no to hairballs. I just like that. So we're gonna kind of recap what to avoid when things go wrong. Sorry. Yes. I got click happy. So again, don't be defensive. Don't take it upon yourself if something maybe wasn't, you know, if they changed it and you gave them what was delivered and what was the SOW. Don't take on more just to do it. It's going to lead down a rabbit hole. Don't just keep putting more and more out there but still keep that conversation open. Keep the talking about forward. Make sure you realize that you're their partner, that you guys are in this project together, and that you're, frankly, as professionals, our success is based off how successful we can make our clients. Sometimes it's individual stakeholders, sometimes it's an organization as a whole. They don't sometimes see that. Our success is there, so of course we're going to partner with them. Because there's always next steps to take together. You got this. So with that, it is your turn. I got tired of cat pictures. Any thoughts, questions? Go for it.
You talked about a retrospective tool that allows anonymous commenting. What tool is that you're using?
I think it's like Zen retrospective. Give me a minute after and I'll look it up.
Cool.
Go. No, go.
I'm wondering if you can offer some general comments about tone and language. You talked about being direct and not sugarcoating it. And I'm thinking particularly of a recent situation where we did led a big team meeting with all the stakeholders, and it seemed to go really well. And then later that evening, one of the people who was at the meeting sent, an email kind of inflammatory. I'm concerned about all this stuff and yada yada, and kind of threw a grenade into the room. And that caused our project team to have a lot of concern about their internal project management, how that stakeholder was behaving herself. Is it okay to come right out and say, I'm concerned that so-and-so doesn't understand, our role in the process and, what's being asked of them and all? Is it okay to use words like I'm concerned, or is that further inflame a situation?
In that situation, I would consider that to be almost finger pointing. Mm-hmm. I would approach it personally instead of like internally, I'd probably use lots of words like I'm concerned, but towards the client, I would much more be like, thank you for your feedback. Just to clarify, this is our role. Mm-hmm. This is what the expectations we discussed. I'd like to recap this, and this from the meeting as the highlights in regards to your concerns about X, Y, and Z. Maybe bullet out X That's really not something we can help with, but if you need advice on how to discuss that with your other vendor or with the other department, let us know.
Yeah.
And basically, instead of saying, I'm concerned about you, say, how can I help you understand where we can help you?
Right. I think
Does that help?
what I'm hearing, is like, just try to be aware of charged language and words that have an emotional connotation to them. Concern is emotional, whereas your litany there was more clinical.
If somebody's really emotionally charged, sometimes the best thing to do is frankly shut down the emotions by not responding to them at all.
Right. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
So kind of in that vein, what happens if the client's really upset and you're trying to talk to them and they just don't seem to be listening to reason? Like you're saying things that you're pretty sure make sense, but somehow it's not getting across.
Yeah. Couple of reasons that I've seen that happening. One of them was something along the lines of they just were not in an emotional state to hear it. And another being that they just can't learn in the way you're presenting it. The second one's obviously much easier. Sometimes it takes different ways of presenting information. For example, I wish there was trout. This is kind of a cool concept.
Right in front of you.
Really? Oh, the huge pile of trout. In the past, I've been known to just make a Google slide, and I actually got a little stick figure person I put in there, and I had option 1, and I made little flowcharts, or option 2 is blah, 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 and I just made a user journey in the ugliest Google slide you will ever see. It was bright orange with stick figures and dotted lines. And in these boxes, I would have, CTA, blog, whatever. And I would just give them a visual aid of frankly, if I knew the client was known to have this kind of issue, I'd prepare it ahead of time. And I'd share my screen, I'd do this quick Google slide of this is what's happening, and this is what the other option is. Is this what you wanted? And then break it down a different way, because this particular person was a very visual learner. She just couldn't get it when we talked about it. And what actually in that particular situation I'm referencing is that was one where we had a marketing and an IT person who were speaking different languages. And this ugly thing is what clarified and saved us tens of hours. So try to find out how the person you are speaking to learns, and try to cater what you're saying or what you're presenting to that. It doesn't have to always be polished. Like this kind of thing is different. I'm not sure all these cat ones consider polished, but you know what I mean. It doesn't have to look finalized. I mean, even a typo can be ignored if you're able to get through their learning block. In terms of emotionally charged, that one's trickier. That one, in truth, I would couch of saying something along the lines of, I hear what you're saying. This is really frustrating for you. I'm going to go back and do some research so I can get you a more clear answer. When are you available next week? Or if it's something urgent, when are you available tomorrow? Make it sound like you're doing something for them, which is why you have to go. You're not shutting them down. You're giving them research. You're giving them your time. You're doing something for them. But really, you're also giving them time to cool down. And frankly, you're buying yourself time, because if you're discovering that they are in fact maybe a visual learner or some other type of learner, you can go through and strategize how you want to present that information later. Does that help?
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Cool. Okay, then you.
If somebody is sugarcoating, how do you pop that bubble? Like,
How do you call them on it? Is that what you're asking?
Do you go to them directly? Do you call them out in front of every? Like, calling out is probably.
It depends on both the relationship or the what role they seem to play, both internally and with you. There's two ways of going about that one too. One is not exactly calling them out. Just say, I've been known to be, I play dumb sometimes, more often than I probably should, but I have no problem with that. There's no ego in project management. It's just getting answers. So I'll be like, I am so sorry, I'm confused. Did you mean this or this? And by calling it out that way, by making me sound confused, which is, 50% accurate probably if they're sugarcoating it enough. By doing it that way, that's a good way to get them to kind of break down to the heart of it, even if they don't want to. In terms of doing it privately, depending on the relationship you have, you could always contact them after and just kind of do a follow-up. Hey, do you have 10 minutes for a call? Look, I really appreciate all your feedback on the call. That was awesome today. I am a little bit confused. I kind of felt like, you might have been sugarcoating, and I appreciate you trying to be nice for my feelings, but I'm not really sure what the next step is. So if you can just kind of bluntly tell me what's going on, and that's the conversation. Calling them out directly like that would be the private. But if you're in this larger call and you just need the answer, just tell them you're confused. Challenge them to say, not challenge them, but give them the opportunity to present it differently. What up?
How do you approach the situation where it's kind of like a hosting provider issue, and the client doesn't necessarily interface with them? Like this literally happened yesterday. We assigned that for like an hour and a half. It was a deploy issue. It wasn't anything that we did. We're on the phone with the hosting provider, but the client, they don't interface
They don't
with them.
understand.
They're
Yeah,
just
it's you.
pissed at me. Yeah, and we're on the phone at 8 o'clock at night. And how do you kind of approach that situation?
Is it a hosting provider that might have had documentation online of their outage? Like a Pantheon or a...
No.
All right. Okay. Well, it makes a difference. If you have a larger company that documents it, you send them to a link to the webpage, see this, blah, 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 blah.
There's an Aqua issue. It's not just you.
Exactly.
It was
This many sites went down and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do they, I guess it would be, do they understand, and are they savvy enough to understand this at all?
No.
Okay. In that case, I would go through and frankly try to do a little education.
Okay.
I would say something along the lines of, we are your interface, but the hosting server, blah, 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 is located here. They were experiencing the issue where all of these clients, even give a number of, if you can get a rough number of how many days, 500 websites went down during this hour and a half block. These steps are being taken, contact the hosting provider. What are you doing to make sure this doesn't happen? Or what are you doing for alerts or something? I don't know. They're going to try to help us know when this is coming up next and blah, 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 blah. Take this as a learning opportunity for them, because it's going to happen again. And if you don't try to teach them, you're going to have the same problem next time.
I also think, I'm thinking of something you said earlier about trying to problem solve for the future too. Once the immediate crisis is passed, there's an opportunity to think about, should we move you to a more redundant plan or something like that? How can we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Exactly.
Add value that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, for this situation, they chose the hosting provider, even though we did not recommend it.
And you might be,
Against
then
their
this might be a
better
good
judgment,
opportunity
this
to
is
show
like
how
the
you were
third or
right.
fourth time where it's been an issue, and they're like, no, we're set. This one is better price.
Yeah.
I don't want to just badmouth them to everyone.
But no, I understand. I'm just,
Not personally.
yeah, no, in that case, you were right. They're just saying, as long as you stay with this hosting provider, we can't ensure that anything's going to change. One thing that came up as a question, one of the times I've done this, is somebody asked me when to cut losses. That is just something, I meant to add a slide for it, and I apparently had forgotten to do so. Crisis happens. A hiss happens, people freak out, things go wrong. That happens. It's going to happen more than once probably. Maybe, hopefully not very frequently, but it's going to happen. When an issue or something like this that happens once in a while becomes constant, becomes almost a cultural piece, that's when you have to ask yourself if this is a relationship worth cultivating. I feel like where we are in a community of people pleasers, it's important to note that not every relationship is worth cultivating. At some point, it's going to do damage. Even if you're getting paid for every hour you're spending on it, at some point the cost will be too high. So take care of yourselves when you're doing this, guys. Any other thoughts, questions? You all really just want the beer at this point. You really do. I know where I stand. I'm going to be in line right behind you at the beer hall. That's where I stand. Meat hall. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful night, and I'm sure I'll see a lot of you in a few.